even though one of the candidates hasn't conceded yet.
And the state of Rhode Island has elected its first female governor.
Providence has a new mayor this morning. The law professor beat the former mayor and the doctor to win that seat. We have lots of election results to talk about this morning after, so we thank you for joining us to get the full story.
Barbara, Frank?
Okay, it's the day after Election Day, and it appears Republican Charlie Baker of Massachusetts will be the next governor of Massachusetts.
It all came down to the wire. The numbers were so close. Baker's opponent, Martha Coakley, has yet to concede. Susie Steimel's in the studio now with a look at that extremely close race. Good morning, Susie.
Good morning, Frank and Barbara. We could be looking at a recall election in the coming days. Martha Coakley, as you said, did not concede. Let's take a look at the numbers here. According to the Associated Press, Charlie Baker received 48% of the vote, and Martha Coakley 47%. It's unclear if Coakley will be asking for a recall later this morning. This is not in Massachusetts an automatic recall, so her campaign would have to request one. Martha Coakley did not address her supporters last night. This is the only piece of video that we have of her after those results started pouring in. She went home and did not make any statements to her supporters. Charlie Baker, on the other hand, took the stage in a pseudo-victory speech last night. Here's what he had to say.
And as I watched those numbers come in, I kept thinking, this is going to end badly for one of us. It's true. And so I talked to her a couple minutes ago, and she said she really wants to wait till the morning to see the final results. Hey, and that's fine. That's fine. In politics, in elections, every vote counts.
So we're waiting to see what happens in this race. According to the Secretary of State's office in Massachusetts, for a recount to be viable, the margin of victory needs to be less than 1/2 of a percentage point. AP's projections have the two candidates, as I just said, at 1 percentage point apart, with 98% of the vote counted. Barbara.
Thank you, Susie. We'll have to see what happens there. In Connecticut, incumbent Democrat Daniel Malloy claimed victory in the governor's race shortly after midnight. Malloy pulled ahead of his Republican challenger, Tom Foley, in a neck-to-neck race for the corner opposite. It was a rather high turnout. Connecticut's Secretary of State's office believes between 55 to 60% of registered voters cast ballots.
And the latest count has Malloy with 51% of the vote and Foley with 48% of the vote. And the state of Rhode Island now has its first female governor. Democrat Gina Raimondo defeated Republican Alan Fung and moderate Robert Healey last night in a campaign that broke spending records.
Yeah, Gina Raimondo is also the first Democrat elected to the job since 1992. NBC 10's Bill Rapley reports.
I am so honored to be your governor-elect.
It was a long road. It finished after the votes were counted with the state police escort that accompanies a governor.
Tonight, Rhode Island showed Rhode Island is ready for a governor who's going to turn this state around.
She knows she still needs to win the support of the majority of Rhode Islanders who did not vote for her, and she only got 40% of the vote.
As I've said so many times, there is no reason we should have one of the highest unemployment rates in the country. We have everything we need to be great, and it's time to get Rhode Island back to work. My commitment to you tonight, I commit to you, the people of Rhode Island, to rebuild this economy, to rebuild this state, and to get Rhode Islanders back to work in good middle-class jobs.
I'm Bill Rapley, NBC 10 News.
And Providence has a new mayor this morning. Democrat Jorge Elorza beat Buddy Cianci and Daniel Harrop last night.
Elorza got a lot of support from voters on the east side of the city, and he won with 53% of the vote to Cianci's 44%. NBC 10's Olivia Fecto has that story.
This is an historic day for Providence. The eyes of the nation were upon us, and today the people of Providence have spoken.
Yeah! Moments after defeating former Providence Mayor Buddy Cianci, the new mayor-elect Jorge Elorza spoke about his goals and vision for the city of Providence.
And it's my firm belief that we can only get there with honest leadership with openness, transparency, and ethics at City Hall.
Elorza wrapped up a busy 2 years of campaigning with a packed Election Day schedule. He told NBC 10 he had about 300 people working on his campaign, talking to voters up until the polls closed.
You have to run from one place to the next, but I met hundreds of voters here today, and I wish I could have met more. Time runs out on you.
His strategy worked. The former housing court judge says he'll start working with current Mayor Angel Taveras right away to make a smooth transition between the two administrations. Olivia Fecto, NBC 10 News.
And there were also some big questions last night on the Rhode Island ballot.
Perhaps one of the most controversial questions on the statewide ballot involved expanding gambling at Newport Grand. It passed the statewide ballot, but voters in Newport did not approve it. What you see on the screen now are the statewide numbers: 57% approved, 43% rejected. But it was completely reversed in Newport. As you can see, Newport voters rejected it with 57% of the vote. Question 2 on the statewide ballot also had to do with gambling in Newport, not allowing casino operators to move the location of their facilities without approval. It, again, did not win in Newport, so it did not pass.
And voters rejected question 3 on the ballot and voted to not have a constitutional convention. Now, that would have amended or revised the Constitution. It's been estimated that a convention would have cost approximately $2.5 million.
And Rhode Island statewide questions 4 through 7 were all approved. Republicans have taken over the U.S. Senate. We'll take a look at the big shift in power overnight in just a moment.
We'll tell you about another close race, this one in New Hampshire. It was not decided until very late last night, but it didn't end well for a former Massachusetts senator.
Now, news outside of the elections. Providence police are investigating a homicide that occurred last night in a well-traveled area of the city. That story's coming up.